Donald Trump says that Denmark's sending one dog and a sled, which is not true. But clearly, whatever they are sending now, these other countries, can be at best token if the US decided to do anything.
I think they are a gesture from Denmark's European allies. I think there's even one or two British soldiers in that contingent that have gone in on a C-130 to Greenland. This is the main European players showing that they are keen to show solidarity with Denmark.
But are they showing solidarity with Denmark, or are they addressing the issue of the defence of Greenland vis-à-vis China and Russia?
They are far too small a contingent to address the issue of defence. Some of us would say that this issue of the threat to Greenland's defence from China and Russia has been inflated in order to justify Donald Trump's desire to take possession of the whole island of Greenland. The fact is that America has got all sorts of military bases in Greenland. It's got an agreement with Denmark that goes back to 1951 where it can put in all it likes to defend that island. So it doesn't need a big military contingent from the European members of the alliance to defend the island.
But that's not what Donald Trump said. No. He's not basing it on what it needs. He is going on a much more real estate gut feeling. You got to own it. If you don't own it, you don't defend it.
And that is why I'm saying that it is not relevant for the Europeans to go and defend the island. This is a gesture of solidarity. There isn't really a need to defend it. As you say, he wants it for psychological reasons. He says if you don't own it, you don't defend it. Whatever that means. I mean, it's a rather extraordinary statement. You will have noticed that the British and a lot of the other European governments were careful not to take sides very strongly over Venezuela, but they did come out very clearly and say Denmark's future is for the Greenlanders and the Danes to decide, not for the United States to decide. So this is a political gesture of support from the European allies for Denmark and Greenland's self-determination.
How difficult is it for politicians at the moment? Because they know what they want to do and they know what they should do, but they also don't want to annoy or piss off the US president. And that is an entirely reasonable position to take, bearing in mind the economic damage he can inflict.
Well, it's really hard for them. It's partly economic damage he can inflict, and we've seen what Donald Trump has done with his tariff wars. Mm-hmm. It is partly that the Europeans still very much need Donald Trump to be in the right place on Ukraine, because they are not confident that he's not going to flip-flop and do what Vladimir Putin encourages him to do, or take another phone call and change his mind over the solidarity. So you're right, they do not want to, as you would put it, piss him off. And in many ways, it is more effective if you're trying to influence this president to do it quietly than in public.
How do you draw that line privately that says to him, do not do any further? Don't do this, because if you do, we will have to act.
Well, it depends what you mean by we will have to act. You know, what have we got? What cards have we got to play, as Donald Trump would say? But how do you do it in private? I mean, the answer is that you have to play to the personality. You've got to play to his strengths. You've got to play to his vanities. You've got to play to his desire to enrich himself and his friends. You've got to play to the America first, and the America is the strong guy. He divides the world up between three strong guys, the China, the Russian, and himself. And the rest of us, in a sense, are also Rands. So you've got to understand that, and you've got to influence him in private. And when we've had some impact with him on Ukraine, for example, it's by making him understand that he does not want to be the person in charge of a complete failure of European security at the hands of Vladimir Putin.
Last question, though, which really, if you were advising government, do you think Donald Trump will go for Greenland? I mean, make some concrete steps. And I don't, whether it's troops or just having one person go over and stick a flag, do you think he will actually take formal steps to annex?
I mean, I think not, but I don't think this is just, you know, fly by night, a whim. He keeps talking about it. Mm-hmm. He definitely wants to get access to the mineral wealth of Greenland for himself and American companies. You know, we should not take that lightly. Will he invade it militarily, the territory of a NATO ally in Europe, which risks destroying the entire alliance? He may not care about it if we asked him today, but in the longer term, he would care about it. I think there'll have to be some other solution short of an American invasion and territorial conquest of Greenland. But I can't quite see what that is yet.
Are you surprised at the failure of the checks and balances? I mean, the system only works if everybody plays their part. And the Republicans in Congress have not raised What one might have expected is legitimate concerns about the Greenland policy, bearing in mind it could be the destruction of NATO.
Republicans in Congress have been supine. They did find a little bit of courage in voting against the president having unlimited powers in Venezuela just the other day. But generally speaking, the checks and balances have not functioned. We've seen the politicization of the judiciary. We've seen the persecution of journalists. We've seen generals, loyal generals, patriots being denigrated by the president. It is a very different sort of America that we are dealing with. Am I surprised? Not really, because this is in a sense what Donald Trump said he was going to do. But it is nevertheless shocking to see the leader of the free world behaving in this way.
I'm grateful. Good to see you, sir.
Thank
you
you,
very much
Richard.
indeed. Thank you.